I said in therapy, I still think about my ex during sex. He got up before I could finish explaining. That right there is the perfect summary of my marriage. Me trying to be honest, and Michael making me feel like garbage for it. I'm Lisa, 29, and I'm about to tell you how one stupid therapy session basically imploded my entire life. So I've been seeing this therapist, Dr. Carter, for about 6 months now. Michael thought it would be a good idea since I'd been distant or whatever. The sessions were going fine, mostly surface level stuff about work stress and my mom being a pain, until last Thursday, when Dr. Carter pushed me to talk about intimacy issues in my marriage. What's going through your mind during those moments with Michael? And she asked. And I don't know what came over me, but I just blurted it out. Sometimes I think about my ex, Ryan. Dr. Carter nodded, like I just told her I preferred chocolate ice cream over vanilla. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there having an internal meltdown because I'd never admitted that to anyone, not even myself, really. She asked me to elaborate, so I explained how it wasn't all the time just when things felt routine or when Michael was being particularly boring in bed. It wasn't even that I wanted Ryan back, God no, just that sometimes those memories helped when things weren't exciting. That night, Michael was annoying me about spending too much money on shoes I barely wear. We were already arguing when he had the nerve to bring up our connection issues and how I seemed checked out during sex. Something in me snapped. You want to know why I seemed checked out? Because sometimes I'm thinking about Ryan. Okay. I said it to hurt him, to shut him up about the stupid shoes. The look on Michael's face, it was like I'd physically slapped him. Wait, I didn't mean, I started, but he didn't give me the chance to explain. Michael just grabbed his keys from the counter and walked straight out the door. I called him like 15 times. No answer. I texted. You're seriously not going to let me explain? Nothing. So dramatic. I mean, at least I was being honest. Isn't that what he's always asking for? More honesty. I called my friend Kate right away, downplaying what I'd said and emphasizing Michael's overreaction. Kate agreed he was being totally unreasonable. Men can't handle the truth, she said, and I felt validated. When Michael finally came home the next evening, looking like he hadn't slept, I immediately launched into my speech about how he'd misunderstood and overreacted. I even threw in some tears for good measure. But something had changed. Michael just looked at me with these empty eyes and said, I think I need some space to figure out if this is still working for me. That's when I knew I'd miscalculated badly. And the worst part, that little voice in my head was already figuring out how to make this all his fault. When Michael left again the next morning, I opened the bottom drawer of my dresser and pulled out the shoebox hidden beneath my winter sweaters. Inside was everything I'd kept from my relationship with Ryan: concert tickets, little notes, a few photos. Most people assume Ryan was this perfect guy who got away. Let me set the record straight. He was a nightmare. We dated for 2 years in my early 20s, and it was pure chaos. He would disappear for days, then show up at my apartment at 2 a.m., expecting me to drop everything. He'd criticize my friends, my clothes, my ambitions. Once, he even threw my phone across the room during a fight. But damn, there was something about him. The intensity, the unpredictability. It was like an addiction. The highs were stratospheric, even if the lows made me contemplate driving my car off a bridge. Michael, on the other hand, has never made me feel like I might die from either heartbreak or happiness. He's just consistent, steady. When we met at my friend's wedding 3 years ago, I was still getting over Ryan. Michael was kind, attentive, financially stable, everything Ryan wasn't. I grabbed my phone, opening Instagram before I could stop myself. Ryan's profile was right there in my search history. His latest post showed him at some club with his arm around a petite blonde. That familiar twist of jealousy hit my stomach. Before I could overthink it, I sent Ryan a message. Hey, stranger, how's life treating you? Simple, casual, totally inappropriate given the current state of my marriage. My phone pinged almost immediately with his response. Well, well, look who it is. Life's good. You still with that accountant guy? He didn't even remember what Michael did. For the record, he's in software sales, not accounting. But that didn't stop the little thrill I felt seeing Ryan's name on my screen. I spent the next hour messaging him, carefully dancing around the fact that my marriage was in crisis. When Michael texted to say he'd be home late, I felt almost relieved. It gave me more time with my little secret, with the fantasy version of life where Ryan and I had somehow made it work. When Michael finally came home that night, I quickly closed my chat with Ryan and plastered on my best concerned wife face. Listen, can we talk about what happened? I tried to sound sincere. I think you misunderstood what I was trying to say. Michael sat down at our kitchen table, maintaining a careful distance. I'm listening. This was my chance to fix things, to genuinely apologize for hurting him. Instead, I launched into a carefully crafted speech about how therapy is supposed to be a safe space for exploring complicated feelings and how he was making me feel judged for being vulnerable. Would you be okay if I told you I fantasize about my ex during our most intimate moments? Michael asked quietly. That's different, I snapped, instantly defensive. How? Because you don't understand the context. I could feel my control slipping. I think I understand perfectly, he said. You're not happy with me, with us. You compare me to him. That's not true, I lied. I chose you, didn't I? I married you. Sometimes I wonder why, Michael said, and the resignation in his voice scared me more than anger would have. I switched tactics, reaching for his hand across the table. Baby, please. It was one stupid comment. Ryan was toxic. You know that. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. The words felt hollow even as I said them. I knew exactly why I'd mentioned Ryan, because sometimes I did miss the chaos, the intensity. Because sometimes Michael's steady devotion made me feel trapped rather than loved. I think we should try couples therapy, I suggested, not because I wanted to fix our issues, but because I needed to regain control of the situation. Okay, Michael agreed after a long pause. We can try that. The next morning, as soon as Michael left for work, I grabbed my phone and checked for messages from Ryan. The final one read, "Remember that weekend at the lake house? Still think about it sometimes." My heart raced as I typed back, how could I forget? Best view in the state. I was referring to the sunrise we'd watched from the deck, but left it ambiguous enough for him to take it another way. I spent the day bouncing between damage control with Michael, sending sweet texts, scheduling our first couples therapy appointment, and increasingly inappropriate conversations with Ryan. It was like living in two different realities. Our first couples therapy session was tense. Before Michael could speak, I jumped in. We had a miscommunication about something I mentioned in my individual session, I explained, making direct eye contact with Dr. Carter like we were conspirators. I was trying to be honest about some complicated feelings, and Michael took it very personally. Dr. Carter nodded but turned to Michael. And how would you describe what happened? Michael took a deep breath. Lisa told me that she thinks about her ex during sex, not as something she used to do, but as something she currently does. It wasn't just the comment, Michael said quietly. It was how you said it, like a weapon during an argument about something else entirely. I felt my cheeks flush. That's not fair. I was just being honest. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, Michael replied. Dr. Carter interjected. Communication isn't just about what we say, but how and when we choose to say it. Lisa, can you understand why the timing and manner of your disclosure might have been hurtful to Michael? I could feel them both waiting for me to admit fault. I guess the timing wasn't ideal, I conceded minimally. But shouldn't Michael appreciate that I'm being real with him? Isn't honesty what relationships are supposed to be about? In the car, afterward, I reached for Michael's hand. That wasn't so bad, right? I think it was really productive. Michael allowed the contact, but didn't return the squeeze. It's a start, he said noncommittally. That night, I made his favorite dinner and initiated sex for the first time in weeks. The whole time, I kept my eyes closed and focused on being present, on not letting my mind wander to Ryan. It felt like work. The next morning, as soon as the door closed behind Michael, I grabbed my phone and checked for messages from Ryan. There were 3 new messages, each one more suggestive than the last. I spent the next week bouncing between damage control with Michael and increasingly inappropriate conversations with Ryan. Our second couples therapy session went much like the first. Dr. Carter asked, Lisa, have you had any contact with Ryan recently? My heart skipped a beat. No, I lied smoothly. That's all in the past. That night, Michael seemed more distant than ever. When I tried to initiate physical contact, he gently disengaged. I'm really tired, he said. Think I'll turn in early. As I listened to him get ready for bed, my phone lit up with a message from Ryan. In your neighborhood tomorrow for a meeting. Coffee? My fingers hovered over the screen. This was crossing a definite line. I knew I should say no. Instead, I typed, espresso yourself on 3rd, 2 p.m. The next day, I called in sick to work, something I'd been doing more often lately. I spent 2 hours getting ready, changing outfits 4 times before settling on a casual but flattering dress that Ryan had once complimented. When Ryan walked through the door of the coffee shop, it was like being transported back in time. He still had that swagger, that confident smile. Well, look at you, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Marriage looks good on you. I laughed, twisting my wedding ring unconsciously. Stop it. What? I'm just stating facts, he replied with that smirk that used to drive me crazy. So, how is married life treating you? Your accountant still taking good care of you? He's in software sales, I corrected automatically. And yeah, things are fine. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Just fine? That doesn't sound very exciting. Not everything needs to be exciting, I said, repeating what I had told myself countless times over the years. Maybe, Ryan said, leaning closer, but some things should be. When his hand touched mine across the table, I didn't pull away. When he suggested we go somewhere more private, I hesitated only briefly before agreeing. We ended up at his friend's apartment. Ryan was between places, as usual, and one thing led to another. Afterward, lying in a stranger's bed next to my ex, reality came crashing back. What had I done? I made some excuse about needing to get home before Michael and left quickly. Ryan's casual, see you around, echoed in my ears. Michael got home around 6:30, bringing takeout as a surprise. Thought you might not feel up to cooking since you weren't feeling well, he said, and the guilt hit me like a physical blow. I told myself it was a one-time mistake, that I would end things with Ryan and recommit to my marriage. I even drafted a message telling Ryan we couldn't talk anymore, but I never sent it. The next few days passed in a fog of guilt and self-justification. I threw myself into being the perfect wife, cooking Michael's favorite meals, suggesting a weekend getaway, initiating physical affection. Our 3rd therapy session was approaching, and I was dreading it. What if Dr. Carter somehow knew what I'd done? But Michael called the morning of our appointment. I don't think I can make it today. There's an emergency with a client. Can we reschedule? Of course, I said, relief washing over me. Everything okay? Just a technical issue that needs immediate attention. I'll call you later. When Michael came home that evening, something was different. He seemed nervous, distracted. He barely touched his dinner and kept checking his phone. Later, while Michael was in the shower, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up his phone from the bedside table, surprised to find it unlocked. There were several notifications from someone named Laura B. I clicked on the message thread, expecting work correspondence. Instead, I found dozens of messages spanning the last 2 weeks. The conversation started professionally enough, but had evolved into something more personal. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Same place, the most recent message read. Michael had replied, yes, 1 p.m. works. Thanks again for today. I put the phone down, my mind racing. Was Michael cheating too? The hypocrisy of my reaction wasn't lost on me, but I couldn't help it. When Michael came out of the bathroom, I was sitting rigidly on the edge of the bed. Who's Laura? I asked without preamble. Michael froze. What? Laura B., the person you've been texting, the client emergency today. Who is she? His expression shifted from shock to resignation. You went through my phone. Answer the question, Michael. He sat down heavily on his side of the bed. She's our therapist's colleague, another therapist in the same practice. This caught me off guard. What? Why are you meeting with another therapist? Because I needed objective advice, Michael said quietly, about us, about what to do. So, you've been talking to some stranger about our marriage behind my back? I was indignant, conveniently forgetting my own far greater betrayal. Yes, Michael admitted, because I don't know if I can do this anymore, Lisa. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Do what? Talk to me. This, us, he gestured between us. I've been trying. I really have. But ever since that night when you mentioned Ryan, I can't stop thinking about it, about whether you're really happy with me or if you've been settling all along. That's ridiculous, I protested. It was one stupid comment. It wasn't just the comment, Michael said, looking directly at me now. It was seeing how easily you could hurt me and how you've been since then, doing all the right things, but never actually addressing the real issue. What real issue? I demanded, though a part of me already knew. Whether you actually want to be with me, he said simply. Or if you're always going to be thinking about what could have been with him. Of course I want to be with you, I insisted. Ryan was toxic. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. The words felt hollow even as I said them. I think I need some time away, Michael said. Some space to figure out what I really want. He got up and pulled a small duffel bag from the closet. One I hadn't noticed was already partially packed. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. He'd been planning this. I slept with Ryan, I blurted out. Michael froze, his back to me. When he finally turned around, his face was completely vacant. Not angry or heartbroken, just empty. When? He asked quietly. Last week, I admitted. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. Stop, Michael interrupted. Just stop. How long have you been in contact with him? Michael asked, his voice controlled again. Since that night, after our fight, Michael nodded slowly. So, while we've been in therapy, while I've been agonizing over whether you're happy with me, you've been talking to him, meeting him, sleeping with him. It wasn't planned, I said weakly. It just happened. Things don't just happen, Lisa, Michael said. You made choices, multiple choices, every step of the way. I'm sorry, I whispered, and for the first time I actually meant it. Yeah, Michael said, shouldering his bag. Me too. He walked to the bedroom door, then paused. I'll be in touch about next steps. Please don't contact me for a while. I need space to process this. And then he was gone. I heard the front door close, then his car start in the driveway. Just like that, my husband had left me. I sat on our bed, shell-shocked, until my phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. Free tonight. Could use some company. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I typed back, no, and don't contact me again. This was a mistake. I blocked his number before he could respond, then curled up on Michael's side of the bed and sobbed until I had no tears left. The next morning, I called my friend Kate, asking if she could come over. She arrived an hour later with coffee and pastries. I told her everything, the therapy revelation, reconnecting with Ryan, the affair, Michael's discovery and departure. I expected sympathy, or at least understanding. Instead, Kate looked at me with disappointment, mixed with something like disgust. Are you serious right now? You cheated on Michael with Ryan, of all people. I know it was a mistake, I said defensively. No, Lisa, it's really not complicated, Kate interrupted. You had a good man who loved you, and you threw it away for a guy who treated you like garbage. And the worst part is you're still acting like this just happened to you, like you're the victim here. Her words hit me like a slap. Kate had always been my cheerleader. I thought you were my friend, I said, hurt. I am your friend, she replied. That's why I'm telling you the truth instead of what you want to hear. I spent the next few days in a daze, alternating between self-pity and genuine remorse. I called Dr. Carter and scheduled an emergency session where I finally told the whole truth. What do you really want, Lisa? She asked after I had unloaded everything. I want Michael back, I said automatically. Why? The question threw me. What do you mean, why? He's my husband. Yes, but why do you want him back? Is it because you truly love him and want to build a life together? Or is it because you're afraid of being alone? I didn't know how to answer. For the first time, I was facing the possibility that I didn't really know what love was, that what I'd called love was actually just need or comfort or fear of abandonment. A week passed with no word from Michael. I returned to work, but my performance continued to suffer. My boss called me into her office after I missed another deadline. What's going on with you lately? She asked. This isn't like you. I considered making up some excuse, but I was tired of lies. My marriage is falling apart, I said. It's my fault, and I'm having trouble focusing. Her expression softened slightly. I'm sorry to hear that, but I need to be clear. If your work doesn't improve, we'll have to take formal action. 2 weeks later, I was put on a performance improvement plan, the corporate equivalent of being put on probation. One Friday night, scrolling mindlessly through social media, I saw it, a photo posted by a mutual acquaintance. Michael at some charity event, smiling beside a woman I didn't recognize. They weren't touching, weren't obviously a couple, but something in their body language suggested familiarity, comfort. The next morning, I woke to an email from Michael's lawyer. He was filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity. The divorce process was brutal, not because Michael was vindictive, he was maddeningly reasonable throughout, but because it forced me to face the reality of what I'd done. 3 months after Michael left, I was called into my boss's office and let go. The severance package was generous, more than I deserved, but the humiliation was overwhelming. One night, drowning in self-pity and half a bottle of wine, I looked at Michael's social media. There she was again, Claire in more photos with him. The worst was the most recent. Michael looking at her with an expression I could remember ever seeing directed at me. Pure, unguarded affection. The divorce was finalized 6 months after Michael left. The day the final papers came through, I drove past our favorite restaurant and saw them, Michael and Claire, sitting at a window table laughing over dinner. I realized then what Dr. Carter had been trying to get me to see. I hadn't loved Michael. Not really. Not unselfishly. I'd loved how he made me feel, what he could do for me, the stability and status he provided. But I'd never truly seen him, never prioritized his happiness over my own whims and desires. That night, I cleared out the last of Michael's things from the house, including the shoebox of Ryan mementos I'd kept hidden. As I sorted through photos and ticket stubs, I saw my relationship with Ryan for what it really was. Not the great passion I'd romanticized, but a toxic cycle of emotional abuse that I'd somehow twisted into a love story. My phone rang. A known number. Hello, I answered. Lisa, it's Ryan. My stomach dropped. How did you get this number? I blocked you. New phone, he said casually. Look, I'm in town for a couple days. Thought we could pick up where we left off. No, I said firmly, that's not going to happen. The next day, I had my final session with Dr. Carter. After months of therapy, I'd finally started to understand my patterns, the need for validation, the fear of boredom, the tendency to idealize the unavailable and devalue the present. What's next for you? She asked as our time came to an end. I'm moving, I said. Fresh start, new city. I've got a job offer in Denver. And what about relationships? I shook my head. Not for a while. I need to figure out who I am first. Learn to be alone without being lonely. The day before I left town, I wrote Michael a letter, not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation, just acknowledging the truth. I took responsibility for my actions without excuses or justifications. I thanked him for the good years and apologized for how I'd ended things. I wished him happiness with Claire, who seemed to value him in all the ways I should have, but didn't. Um, I didn't expect a response and I didn't get one, but writing it felt like closing a chapter, like the first step toward becoming someone who might eventually deserve the kind of love I'd so carelessly thrown away. As I drove out of town, past all the landmarks of my failed marriage, I thought about what Dr. Carter had said in one of our sessions. The most profound growth often comes from our most painful failures. I hoped she was right because I had failed profoundly, and the pain was equal to the magnitude of that failure. All I could do now was try to grow from it.